Now, racing against time, a number of major metro councils are today holding a sitting ahead of tomorrow's deadline to elect the office bearers. In the Nelson Mandela Bay, ANC's Eugene has been elected to the mayoral position, beating the DA's Nqaba Bhanga by just one vote. We are also monitoring the hotly contested City of Johannesburg Council that is currently underway. We just spoke to our reporter Malungelo Boy. They are on lunch, but when they reconvene, it will be the big story and the big action of the day. Now, for more on what we can expect from these council meetings and what impact that will likely have on service delivery, I'm joined now by Mr. Mughogho from the South African Cities Network. Good to have you with us this afternoon, Mr. Wowo. Perhaps let's start with the importance and the relevance of correctly holding council. Talk to us about that.
Thank you for having me, and good afternoon to your listeners. The importance of council is it's the most important decision-making body within the municipality. So the council consists of our elected representatives who we chose at local government elections on the 1st of November. And those councillors are now sitting, as you'll have announced just now, to actually appoint a Speaker of Council. Number one, the first order of business once they meet is to appoint a Speaker of Council, and then to proceed on to elect important office holders such as the Mayor and other important officers within the Council itself. And so the Council is where decisions such as the budget, the approval of the budget, which is how the municipality funds its activities, decisions on the appointments of senior administrative positions within the municipality are made based on the recommendations of the mayor and the municipal manager. And also the council is really where our representatives have oversight over the administration that is in each municipality. And by that I mean that the administration are the actual people who are tasked with doing the various things that we enjoy in municipalities, which is the service delivery, the making sure our waste and sanitation is collected and so on, as well as implementing the long-term plans of the municipalities. So there's an integrated development plan which our communities engage in, and our councillors communicate and implement, or rather include community wishes and aspirations in the integrated development plan. And then every year the council has to see that the service delivery and budget implementation plan, which is the annual version of that IDP, is actually how much of it has actually happened. And so they actually keep the administration on its toes, if you will, in a role that we call oversight.
You spoke about the importance of council, passing budgets, making sure that service delivery is actually effective post this entire election period. But looking at how council is being constituted now with so many quote-unquote smaller parties and also the bigger parties not really being able to find a footing on principles, but a lot on, politicking and, political alliances being formed now. The dynamics that we're seeing across the country, specifically in the larger metros, how are those likely to affect service delivery in the long run? Because ultimately, that is what communities really care about, service delivery.
Yes, and that is, in fact, a very important question. Well, they affect service delivery to the extent that those issues within and amongst the parties become a problem in terms of the council doing its business. So, for example, if as a result of some disagreement between either coalition parties or just parties in general where they're not able to achieve a majority and a decision needs to be taken. So, for example, now the councils will inherit the budgets from the previous administration. But when a new budget is proposed, if come March or February or March of next year, and the councils cannot agree and cannot meet to actually agree on a budget, then clearly that would have implications for all the activities that are supposed to be funded by that budget in the following year, and they could actually stall entirely. So that would be a worst case scenario. On the other hand, there could be issues around just disagreements in terms of policy. So if you have two parties that have very big differences on a particular issue, and then they can't actually resolve that issue, and that prevents them agreeing on the other elements of the so-called coalition agreement they have amongst themselves, then that can also impact the way in which the council operates. Also, the difficulty can be in electing a mayor. an executive mayor. So other than KwaZulu-Natal, we have an executive mayoral system where the mayor has a committee, very much like the president and cabinet of national sphere, which then oversees and directs the performance of the administration. So if there are coalition disagreements, either in setting up that MACO, so they're not able to have that executive committee operate in an optimal fashion, then that can have implications for service delivery in that sense of the oversight role that I mentioned. So, for example, if there's a plan for an activity that should have taken, for example, let's say building a dam in a particular area within the municipality, and the executive committee is not necessarily able to oversee to make sure that that proceeds in the timeliest fashion that it's supposed to, then that clearly would have an effect on the people who are depending on that dam coming on operation by a certain time period. So it really depends on the extent to which the disagreements lead to instability and then have an impact on decisions that need to be taken in order to have service delivery take place.
Now, if there is no agreement between the various coalitions, how is that going to affect governance?
Yes, and this is really the question that we're all very concerned about. You wouldn't actually necessarily need to have a formal agreement between parties in order to have, a working executive committee, as I just described. So some parties may be writing and have been meeting over the last few weeks and looking to write formal agreements between themselves. But in some cases, it may just be an agreement to support each other on critical votes and so on. In which case, so long as they are able to keep that agreement in place, then it's quite possible for governance to continue. As I said, the problem really comes, and we saw in the previous local government administrative cycle from 2016 to 21, which is when you have such divisions and such political instability between the parties that it then affects the ability of the administrators, the people within the administration, to actually do the job that they do all the time, even when elections are taking place, between elections and so on. So it's when it affects the ability of those people, the people who are the engineers who are fixing water, the engineers who are making sure that we have electricity, and, the staff who are working to make sure that sanitation is picked up. It's when those political ructions have an ongoing effect on the ability of those people to have a job, to do their job properly, that it really affects service delivery.
Mr. Danga, Mughogho, we'll leave it at that for this afternoon. Thank you so much for your time. That's Mr. Danga Mughogho, Program Manager at Well-Governed Cities at the South African Cities Network.